X-Men Origins Wolverine was developed by Raven Software and published by Activision back in 2009. The developer, Raven Software, may sound familiar as they created X-Men Legends and the first Marvel Ultimate Alliance game. So, the developers were pretty familiar with the character of Wolverine. Unfortunately, since this is a movie tie-in game based on a movie that is pretty bad, there are a few things holding it back. But we'll talk about that later. For now, let's talk about what this game does right. First off, it's rated M, which means they can show a ton of blood and body parts being cut off. I know, this might not sound that crazy in a video game, but you have to remember we only had a PG-13 Wolverine on the big screen. So, thankfully Activision didn't try and make this game rated T, as that just would have been a nightmare. Since this game has an M rating, it allowed the developers to have a lot more freedom, especially in combat and different animations. Hey, want to throw this guy into a sharp object and kill him? Go for it. Want to remove someone's head from their body completely? You can do that. There is a ton of different animations depending on the attacks you do. You can perform light attacks, heavy attacks, and my personal favorite, grabbing an enemy and then performing a heavy attack to finish them off. In this game, there is also a lunge ability. So if an enemy is shooting at you from a distance, you can take them out really easily. I mean, this move is pretty overpowered. To be fair, the entire game is actually really easy. I probably only died about 3 or 4 times during my play session, and that's because I accidentally fell off the map. As Wolverine, you obviously have a healing factor, but that doesn't actually make you OP because, I mean, almost every game has a healing factor in some way. I think it's more the AI being really easy to kill and these abilities that are called mutagens. In the game, you can equip up to 3 mutagens, which all have different abilities. For example, one makes you heal faster, one causes more damage, and things like that. And by the way, this system is completely different from your skill tree. In the skill tree, you can increase the amount of health you have, how much damage certain moves cause, and the duration of said moves. With these two things combined, you'll be unstoppable. And yes, that is basically Wolverine, but still, I just wish there was some challenge to this game. Going back to the healing factor though, I have to point out how amazing the effect looks. Your entire chest can be exposed when it's shot up, and then a few minutes later, it's back to normal. Also, when you're wearing a tank top, it will eventually disappear once it gets shot up. Even Deadpool, a game that came out 5 years later, didn't do the effect as good as this game. So, props to the developers there. The mission designs, unfortunately, aren't as praiseworthy though. You'll fight waves and waves of enemies throughout a lot of boring areas. Sometimes though, the developers will switch it up. I mean, early on, they actually take away your healing factor, so this makes for some interesting gameplay. Also, some of the boss battles are pretty fun, Gambit being one of those. In the movie, Gambit has a very short scene that takes place in an alleyway. In this game, it's way longer, over the top, and you're fighting him throughout a few different areas. This is the fight scene we should have got in the movie because it's amazing. Also, speaking of characters, for some odd reason, this game has Raven, who wasn't in the movie at all. In fact, in this game, her and will.i.am are dating. So at least the developers tried to switch some things up, but at the end of the day, you still have Blob, will.i.am, and this disgusting version of Deadpool. I mean, I wonder what the developers' reaction was when Fox told them that Deadpool would look like this. It's actually funny because a few years later, Raven Software actually wanted to develop a Deadpool game, but Activision ended up picking High Moon Studios for the project. Anyways, back to this game, Hugh Jackman does the voice acting for Wolverine, and his lines are either hit or miss. Sometimes his delivery can be really good, but then other times you end up with this.
Please, Kayla, stay with me. You're okay.
To be honest, you're not really going to pay attention to the story because it's just not that good or interesting. It definitely has its moments, but for the most part, you'll just have fun killing a bunch of enemies in various ways. The combat does become repetitive, but since it's a lot of fun, you won't really care, especially since the developers do eventually switch up the enemy types. As far as bonus content goes, there really isn't a ton. At least there is 3 different outfits you can unlock, which is great because they're straight from the comics, but besides that, there really isn't much else. Anyways, that's going to do it for this video. Let me know what you think about this game and the movie in the comments down below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all later.